The transport ship Nexus Merchant groaned as it docked with Kepler Station, its hull scarred from months of interstellar travel. Among the cargo manifest was an entry that had caused considerable debate among the station's administrators. One human female, age 17 standard years, destination unknown. Maya Chen stepped off the transport with nothing but a worn travel bag and eyes that held too much knowledge for someone so young. The Kepler Station immigration officer, a tall Vorthak with silver-scaled skin, looked down at her with barely concealed disdain. Another Deathworlder refugee, he muttered in Galactic Standard, assuming she wouldn't understand. These primitives keep showing up like space debris. Maya said nothing, though her jaw tightened slightly. She had learned long ago that silence was often the wisest response. The officer processed her documentation with deliberate slowness, each stamp and scan accompanied by theatrical sighs of annoyance. Purpose of visit to Kepler Station? He finally asked. Transit? Maya replied simply. Looking for work. The Vorthak's laugh was like grinding metal. Work, child, this is a civilized station. We have standards. He leaned closer, his breath reeking of sulfur compounds. Perhaps you should try the Outer Rim colonies. They're more accommodating to your kind. Maya took her papers without comment and walked into the main concourse of Kepler Station. The sprawling complex buzzed with activity as dozens of alien species conducted business, traded goods, and socialized. Holographic advertisements floated overhead in multiple languages, promising everything from exotic foods to rare minerals. She had been walking for barely 10 minutes when 3 figures blocked her path. They were Zephyrians, humanoid beings known for their blue-tinted skin and aggressive nature. The leader, a male with elaborate tattoos covering his arms, smiled with too many teeth. Well, well, he said, switching between Galactic Standard and his native tongue for emphasis. A little human all alone on our station. His companions flanked Maya as curious onlookers began to gather. In the diverse ecosystem of Kepler Station, humans were still a novelty, and not always a welcome one. Most aliens viewed Earth as a barely civilized death world, whose inhabitants were either savage brutes or helpless weaklings, depending on the propaganda they had been fed. You know, the Zephyrian continued, circling her slowly. There's a place on this station where beings like you can be useful. The Arena District. They're always looking for fresh entertainment. Maya's eyes tracked each movement, calculating distances and potential threats. She had hoped to find legitimate work, perhaps in the cargo bays or maintenance sectors, but she was beginning to realize that her species' reputation preceded her wherever she went. I'm not interested, she said quietly. Oh, but I think you are. The Zephyrian's hand moved to the shock prod at his belt. See, we have a little arrangement with the Arena Masters. We bring them promising candidates and they share the profits. Everyone wins. Everyone except the candidates, Maya observed. This drew laughter from the gathering crowd. A tentacled merchant from Proxima Beta called out, The human has spirit. That should last at least 5 minutes in the rings. More aliens pressed closer, sensing entertainment. Maya could see security drones hovering nearby, but their operators seemed content to watch rather than intervene. After all, human rights weren't exactly a priority in this part of space. The Zephyrian leader produced a neural compliance collar, the kind used to control dangerous animals. Now this can go 2 ways, he said. You can come quietly and we'll make sure you get matched against something your size. Or we can do this the hard way, and you'll face whatever the Arena Masters think will generate the biggest betting pool. Maya looked around at the sea of alien faces, each one wearing expressions ranging from amused indifference to predatory anticipation. Not one showed sympathy or concern. This was just another Tuesday on Kepler Station, another primitive being processed through the system. She thought of her home, of Earth and its endless conflicts that had forged humanity in fires these comfortable aliens couldn't imagine. She thought of her father, who had died defending a refugee convoy from raiders. She thought of her brother, lost in the Titan mining disaster. She thought of every human who had scratched and clawed their way up from their violent world to reach for the stars, only to find that the galaxy had already decided what they were worth. All right, Maya said finally, her voice steady. I'll go with you. The Zephyrian grinned triumphantly and moved to place the collar around her neck. But as his hand reached toward her, Maya spoke again. But I want to choose my own first match. Ha! The human thinks she has a say in this. The leader's amusement was echoed by the crowd. Very well, little Deathworlder. Who would you like to face? A maintenance droid? Perhaps a domesticated Thraxian cub? Maya's smile was small and cold. How about all three of you? The laughter died. The Zephyrian stared at her, uncertain whether he had heard correctly. Around them, the crowd murmured in confusion and growing interest. You want to fight us? All three? The leader's voice cracked slightly. Child, we're trained fighters. Security contractors. We could break you with one hand. Maybe, Maya agreed. But if you're so confident, why not make it official? Arena combat, full rules, betting allowed. She paused, letting her words sink in. Unless you're afraid of a fragile human girl. The challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. The Zephyrian's pride warred with his common sense while the crowd began chanting for a fight. And deep in the arena district, betting odds were already being calculated on a match that would soon become legendary. Word of the unusual challenge spread through Kepler Station like wildfire. Within an hour, the arena district was packed with beings eager to witness what most expected to be a brief and bloody spectacle. The three Zephyrians had accepted Maya's challenge, their wounded pride overriding any tactical consideration. The arena master, a massive Crorian whose crystalline exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lights, reviewed the match details with barely concealed glee. Unexpected fights meant higher betting revenues, and fights involving humans were always profitable, if brief. Standard combat protocols, he announced to the gathering crowd through amplified speakers. No weapons beyond natural abilities and basic arena equipment. Fight continues until surrender, unconsciousness, or death. His multifaceted eyes fixed on Maya. Are you certain about this, human? These Zephyrians are experienced combatants. Maya stood in the preparation chamber, surrounded by automated medical scanners and equipment dispensers. The scanners were having difficulty getting accurate readings. Human physiology was still poorly understood by most galactic medical databases. I'm certain, she replied, selecting a simple combat harness from the equipment rack. The other options included various protective gear designed for different alien anatomies, none of which would fit her properly anyway. In the adjacent chamber, the three Zephyrians were gearing up with considerably more enthusiasm. Their leader, who had introduced himself as Vex, was regaling his companions with stories of previous arena victories. Remember the Rigelian who thought his 4 arms would give him an advantage? Vex laughed. Lasted maybe 3 minutes. These humans are supposed to be even weaker than Rigelians. His second, a female named Kira, was less confident. I heard they come from a heavy gravity world, and their home system is listed as a quarantine zone. Propaganda, Vex dismissed. The Galactic Council exaggerates everything about Deathworlds to keep people scared. Look at her, she's barely adult by their standards, skinny as a maintenance droid, and she's shaking like a leaf. They were wrong about the last part. Maya wasn't shaking from fear. She was vibrating with controlled energy, her body preparing for combat in ways the aliens couldn't recognize. Her heart rate had settled into the steady rhythm her father had taught her breathing deep and measured. Every muscle was loose and ready. The arena itself was a circular space roughly 50 meters in diameter, surrounded by energy barriers that would contain the fight while allowing spectators a clear view. The floor was covered in a non-slip surface designed to accommodate various alien locomotion systems. Scattered around the arena were obstacles and platforms that fighters could use for tactical advantage. As the combatants were introduced, the crowd's excitement was palpable. Betting stations around the arena floor were processing thousands of credits in wagers. The odds were heavily favored toward the Zephyrians, 50-1 against Maya surviving more than 5 minutes. In the blue corner, the arena master's voice boomed. The team of Vex, Kira, and Thane, security contractors with a combined 47 arena victories. The Zephyrians entered to cheers and applause. They moved with the confident swagger of experienced fighters, acknowledging the crowd's approval with raised fists and aggressive posturing. And in the red corner, the announcement continued with considerably less enthusiasm. Maya Chen, human refugee, age 17 standard years. Arena record 0 wins, 0 losses. The crowd's response was mixed. Some laughter, some booing, and scattered shouts of encouragement from the few beings who enjoyed seeing underdogs attempt the impossible. Maya walked into the arena quietly, ignoring the noise and focusing on her opponents. She was smaller than all 3 Zephyrians, lighter, and apparently less muscled. To most observers, she looked like prey that had somehow wandered into a predator's domain. Even the automated cameras tracking the fight seemed to focus more on the Zephyrians, as if the outcome was already decided. In the VIP viewing area, several influential aliens were discussing the match with the casual indifference of beings placing bets on a horse race. "Tragic, really," commented a Centaurian diplomat. "These humans keep seeking refuge in civilized space, but they're simply not adapted for our way of life. Perhaps this will discourage others from leaving their primitive world. The Deathworld psychological conditioning might make her dangerous for a few moments," suggested a Vorthon scientist. "I've read studies suggesting that beings from high-stress environments can display surprising aggression when cornered. Aggression without technique is just suicide." "With extra steps," laughed a wealthy Zephyrian merchant. "I've bet heavily on this ending in under 3 minutes." Down in the arena, the final preparations were being completed. Maya had refused all offers of protective gear beyond the basic harness, while the Zephyrians had equipped themselves with reinforced gloves and shin guards, standard equipment that increased both offensive and defensive capabilities. "Last chance to surrender," Vex called across the arena. "I'll make it quick if you yield now." Maya responded by settling into a fighting stance that looked deceptively relaxed to alien eyes. Her feet were positioned for maximum mobility, her weight evenly distributed, her hands open and ready. It was a stance perfected over millennia of human conflict, but to beings unfamiliar with human combat techniques, it looked amateurish. The arena master raised his primary manipulator appendage. Around the arena, the crowd fell silent in anticipation. Betting was closed, cameras were focused, and medical teams stood ready to clean up what everyone expected to be a very one-sided fight. "Combatants ready?" the arena master called. Both sides acknowledged their readiness. "Begin!" The Zephyrians charged immediately, moving with the coordinated precision of a trained team. Their plan was simple: surround the human, overwhelm her with superior numbers and strength, and end the fight before she could do anything desperate or unpredictable. Maya watched them approach, her mind automatically calculating angles, speeds, and timing. She had perhaps 3 seconds before they reached her. 3 seconds to show this crowd of aliens what it meant to be human. She smiled. The first Zephyrian to reach Maya was Thane, the youngest and most aggressive of the three. He came in fast and confident, expecting to tackle the human girl to the ground where his superior mass would end the fight quickly. His blue-scaled fist was already drawn back for what he intended to be the finishing blow. Maya moved. To the crowd, it looked like she had simply stepped aside. But Thane suddenly found himself grasping empty air, his momentum carrying him forward while his target was no longer where his brain insisted she should be. Before he could adjust, Maya's elbow connected with the nerve cluster at the base of his neck, a weak point that existed in most humanoid species, but was rarely targeted due to the precision required. Thane crashed to the arena floor, temporarily paralyzed but conscious enough to realize that something had gone very wrong with their simple plan. The crowd's initial reaction was confusion rather than excitement. Surely the Zephyrian had just slipped, or perhaps misjudged the distance. The human couldn't possibly have done anything significant. She was barely half Thane's weight. Vex and Kira adjusted their approach, circling Maya from opposite sides. They had trained together for years and fell automatically into a pincer movement designed to prevent exactly the kind of evasion that had just occurred. "Lucky shot," Vex called out, though his voice carried less certainty than his words suggested. "Won't happen again." Maya didn't respond verbally, but her posture had changed subtly. Where before she had seemed tense and uncertain, now she moved with fluid grace that spoke of training and experience. The crowd was beginning to take notice. Kira attacked from behind while Vex came straight forward, a coordinated assault that should have trapped Maya between them. But humans had been fighting multiple opponents since before they learned to make fire, and Maya's training had been thorough and brutal. She dropped into a crouch and spun, sweeping Kira's legs with a movement that was both beautiful and devastating. As the female Zephyrian fell, Maya caught her wrist and used her own momentum to redirect her into Vex's path. The two aliens collided with a sound like breaking stone. The arena fell silent except for the groans of injured fighters. In the VIP section, the Centaurian diplomat leaned forward in his seat. "Did that human just—" "Impossible," the Vorthon scientist interrupted. The muscle density readings showed she couldn't possibly generate that kind of force. But on the arena floor, the evidence was undeniable. Thane was still struggling to regain motor control, while Vex and Kira were untangling themselves from what should have been a devastating collision. Maya stood in the center of the arena, breathing steadily, apparently unaffected by the brief exchange. The betting stations began to register a sudden shift in odds. Not dramatic. Most aliens still assumed the Zephyrians would recover and adapt, but enough to indicate that some observers were beginning to question their initial assessments. Vex pulled himself upright, his pride wounded more than his body. "Get serious," he snarled at his companions. "Stop playing with the Deathworlder." What followed was a more coordinated assault. The Zephyrians had abandoned their assumption of easy victory and were now fighting as the trained security contractors they actually were. They moved in formation, cutting off Maya's escape routes and forcing her toward the arena walls where her mobility would be limited. Maya let them hurt her. Apparently trapped by superior tactics and teamwork, the crowd began to relax, confident that normal order was being restored. The human had gotten lucky, but now she would face the consequences of challenging her betters. Then Maya went on the offensive. She exploded into motion with a speed that the alien observers simply couldn't process. Human reaction times, honed by millions of years of evolution on a world where hesitation meant death, operated on a different scale than anything most galactic species had experienced. Maya's first target was Kira, who had positioned herself to block the most obvious escape route. The human girl's approach seemed almost casual, a simple step forward followed by what looked like a gentle push to the chest. Kira flew backward 6 meters and hit the arena wall with enough force to crack the reinforced barrier. The crowd's silence was now absolute. Even the automated betting system seemed to pause as they recalculated impossible odds. Vex stared at his fallen companion, then at Maya, then at Thane, who was finally regaining his feet. The mathematics of the situation no longer made sense. Humans were supposed to be weak. The databases said so. The report said so. Everything he had been told about Deathworlders suggested they were either primitive savages or fragile refugees. "What are you?" Vex whispered. Maya tilted her head slightly, considering the question. Around them, the arena had become an amphitheater of stunned silence. Thousands of aliens struggled to process what they had just witnessed. "I'm human," Maya said simply. "We're from Earth." "Earth is listed as a Class 9 death world," Thane said, finally able to speak, though he remained unsteady on his feet. "Class 9 worlds don't produce intelligent life. Class 9 worlds don't produce intelligent life that anyone expects to survive," Maya corrected. "But we did survive, for millions of years. Through ice ages and plagues and wars and extinctions, we survived when our sun went dark, when our continents split apart, when our atmosphere tried to poison us." She began walking toward the two standing Zephyrians, her movements relaxed, but somehow predatory. "We survived when everything on our world was trying to kill us, including each other. We learned to fight things bigger than us, faster than us, stronger than us. We learned to fight multiple opponents. We learned to fight while injured, while hungry, while afraid." Vex and Thane found themselves backing away, though neither could have explained why. Maya wasn't threatening them, she was simply walking, but something primitive in their brains was screaming warnings. "You want to know what I am?" Maya continued. "I'm a 17-year-old human girl who has never been in a serious fight in her entire life. On my world, I would be considered soft, peaceful, protected." The implications of her words rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. If this was what humans considered soft and peaceful, what would their warriors be like? "This is impossible," someone shouted from the stands. "The databases, your databases are wrong," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly in the silent arena. "Everything you think you know about humanity is wrong. We didn't crawl out of our gravity well begging for scraps. We clawed our way to the stars because we were too stubborn to accept that anything was impossible." Vex made one last desperate attempt at regaining control of the situation. "There are still 2 of us. We can—" Maya moved again, and this time the crowd could see the fluid efficiency of human combat technique in full display. She didn't just defeat the 2 remaining Zephyrians, she dismantled them with surgical precision, striking nerve clusters and pressure points with the casual expertise of someone who had been taught anatomy as a combat discipline. When the arena fell silent again, Maya stood alone among 3 unconscious opponents. She wasn't even breathing hard. The arena master's voice, when it finally emerged from the speakers, was barely a whisper. Winner, the human. In the betting stations, a few prescient individuals who had placed impossible wagers on the human were suddenly very wealthy. But most of the crowd was too stunned to think about money. They were thinking about the implications of what they had just witnessed. And some of them were beginning to feel very afraid. Within hours of Maya's unexpected victory, every major news network in the sector was broadcasting footage of the fight. The video clips spread through galactic communication networks like a virus, each viewing spawning dozens of heated debates about their authenticity. The Galactic Council's Xenobiology Department received over 3,000 requests for information about human combat capabilities. When they admitted that their files contained mostly theoretical data based on second-hand reports, panic began to set in among several member species. On Kepler Station, the arena district had transformed into something resembling a war zone. Security forces had cordoned off the combat areas after 3 separate riots broke out among spectators, arguing about what they had witnessed. Emergency medical teams were still treating aliens who had suffered anxiety-induced cardiac episodes during the broadcast. Maya sat in a small holding room adjacent to the arena, technically free to leave but practically trapped by the chaos outside. Through the reinforced window, she could see crowds of aliens gathered around holographic displays, replaying her fight from multiple angles and debating what it meant for galactic civilization. "They're afraid," she said to herself, more amazed than pleased by the realization. They should be. Maya turned to find a new figure in the doorway. A tall, insectoid being with compound eyes and mantis-like appendages. His exoskeleton bore the insignia of an arena combat official, but his bearing suggested military training. "Commander Zikth of the Kepler Security Forces," he introduced himself. "We need to talk." "About what?" Maya asked, though she suspected she knew. "About the fact that you just invalidated 60 years of xenobiological data and caused 3 species to declare emergency sessions of their home governments." Zikth's mandibles clicked nervously. "About the fact that betting syndicates are now offering 10 million credits for anyone willing to fight you, and mercenary groups are seriously considering collecting." Maya frowned. "I just defended myself against 3 attackers. Where I come from, that's called Tuesday. That's exactly the problem." Zikth activated a holographic display showing news feeds from across the galaxy. "Look at these headlines. Human child displays impossible combat abilities. Deathworlder refugees may be military infiltrators. Are humans the galaxy's next apex predators?" The news feeds were indeed alarming. Maya watched as talking heads debated whether humanity represented a threat to galactic stability. Some called for immediate quarantine of all human-occupied worlds. Others demanded that the Galactic Council investigate whether humans had been deliberately hiding their capabilities. "It gets worse," Zikth continued. 3 different private military corporations have placed bounties on live human specimens for research purposes. The Syndicate Wars veterans are claiming that humans might be the warrior race they've been looking for to break the current stalemate. Maya stood up, her patience wearing thin. "What do you want from me?" "Proof that you're an anomaly," Zikth said bluntly. "Fight again. Fight bigger opponents. Either demonstrate that you're unique among your species or—" He paused, his compound eyes reflecting the harsh lighting. "Or what? Or convince the galaxy that humans should be classified as a restricted species and contained within their home system permanently." The threat was clear, and Maya felt a familiar anger building in her chest. It was the same rage she had felt watching Earth's first diplomatic mission return in defeat, their ambassadors dismissed as primitive barbarians. The same fury that had driven her to leave her homeworld in search of a better future among the stars. "Who do you want me to fight?" Zikth's relief was visible. The arena masters have been flooded with challenges. Every retired champion, every up-and-coming fighter, every warrior looking to make a name for themselves wants a piece of the human who defeated 3 Zephyrians. He activated another display showing a list of potential opponents. Maya scanned the names and species designations, noting the increasing lethality of each suggested match. Torgan the Breaker, Raxian Berserker, 47 wins, 0 losses. She read aloud. Quantum-shifting Veil Dancer from the Andromeda sector. Hive Mind Warrior Collective from Kepler Prime. She looked up at Zikth. "You want me to fight all of these?" We want to establish the limits of human capability, he replied. If you can defeat these opponents, it suggests that all humans possess similar abilities. If you lose, it indicates that you were an exceptional individual, rather than a representative sample. Maya laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You don't understand. I'm not exceptional. I'm not even particularly well trained by human standards. I learned basic self-defense from my father and practiced martial arts as a hobby. Half the humans in any given settlement could probably do what I did today. Zixth's exoskeleton made an alarming creaking sound. That's impossible. The energy output calculations alone. Your calculations are based on assumptions about what intelligent life looks like, Maya interrupted. You evolved on safe worlds with stable climates and predictable threats. You developed civilization by cooperation and mutual aid. She gestured toward the window where the crowds were still gathering. We developed civilization by learning to kill everything that tried to kill us first. 2 hours later, Maya stood in the arena again, this time facing Torgon the Breaker. The Raxian was massive even by his species standards, 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor plating, with 4 arms that could crush steel. His fighting style was simple and effective. Grab the opponent and squeeze until something important broke. The betting odds were more reasonable this time, though still heavily favored toward Torgon. The crowd was larger too, with representatives from dozens of species who had come to see if the human's first victory had been a fluke. Small human, Torgon rumbled in heavily accented galactic standard. I will make death quick, is courtesy to worthy opponent. Maya appreciated the sentiment even as she studied his stance and movement patterns. Raxians were powerful but slow, their heavy armor limiting their mobility. Their nervous systems were also centralized, with major nerve clusters located in predictable positions. Thank you, she replied sincerely, but I'm not planning to die today. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. Maya's strategy was simple. Get inside Torgon's reach, find the nerve cluster that controlled his lower body, and shut down his mobility. What made it look impossible to the watching crowd was the speed and precision with which she executed the plan. Torgon's first swing missed her by millimeters. His second missed by centimeters. His third never happened because Maya was already behind him, her fingers finding the exact pressure point that would send him crashing to the arena floor like a falling building. The silence that followed was even more profound than after her first victory. Someone in the crowd began to hyperventilate. Security drones moved closer to the arena, their operators apparently unsure whether Maya represented a contained threat or an escaped one. In the aftermath, as medical teams attended to the unconscious Raxian, Maya realized that she had made a fundamental miscalculation. She had thought that demonstrating human capability would earn her species respect and recognition in galactic society. Instead, she had convinced an entire sector that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to roam free among civilized species. And tomorrow, they wanted her to fight the quantum-shifting veil dancer. Maya was beginning to understand that this would not end with a few arena matches. This would end only when she had either proven that humans belonged in galactic civilization, or proven that they were too dangerous to be allowed to exist in it. The crowd was chanting her name now, but it didn't sound like admiration. It sounded like fear. The quantum-shifting veil dancer arrived on Kepler Station aboard a diplomatic vessel, accompanied by an entourage that included scientists, military observers, and what appeared to be a full medical team. The Andromedans took their combat seriously, and they were clearly expecting to either study human capabilities firsthand or retrieve whatever remained of Maya afterward. Dr. Silen, the lead Andromedan xenobiologist, requested a private meeting with Maya before the scheduled fight. They met in a sterile conference room deep within the station's administrative sector, surrounded by recording equipment and sensor arrays that Maya was fairly certain violated several galactic privacy treaties. You understand the significance of what is happening here, Dr. Salen began without preamble. Her species was humanoid but ethereal, with skin that seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy. This is no longer about arena entertainment. This is about determining humanity's place in galactic civilization. Maya sat across from her, aware that every word and gesture was being analyzed. I never wanted it to be about that. I just wanted to find work. Yet here we are. Dr. Silen activated a holographic display showing galactic news feeds. 17 species have now requested emergency sessions to discuss the human question. Military contractors are bidding enormous sums for human soldiers. 3 different religious movements have declared humans either divine warriors or demonic invaders. She paused. And 2 minor species have begun developing weapons specifically designed to kill humans. Because I won a couple of fights? Because you won them in ways that shouldn't be possible. Dr. Silin leaned forward. Our champion Vextar has quantum shifting abilities. She can exist in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously, making her effectively impossible to hit while allowing her to strike from any angle. She has never lost a fight because most opponents cannot even perceive her attacks. Maya nodded slowly. And you want to see if I can adapt to fighting something I can't fully perceive. We want to understand the limits of human adaptability. Dr. Silin's expression was unreadable. Every species has evolutionary advantages. Raxians have strength. Centaurians have speed. Zephyrians have coordination. But humans appear to have something we've never encountered before, which is the ability to succeed in spite of being outmatched in every measurable category. That evening, Maya stood in the arena once again, but this time, the atmosphere was different. The crowd included official representatives from major galactic powers. Military analysts were recording every second of footage. The betting pools had been replaced by research grants and diplomatic agreements. This was no longer entertainment. This was a demonstration with implications for interstellar politics. Vextar materialized in the center of the arena, or rather, multiple versions of her materialized simultaneously. The Andromedan champion existed in several quantum states at once, her form shifting between solid, translucent, and completely invisible. To most observers, she appeared as a constantly changing figure that seemed to occupy multiple positions simultaneously. Human, came Vextar's voice from every direction at once. You have caused great disruption to galactic order. This ends now. Maya turned slowly, trying to track the quantum shifts. She could see perhaps half of Vextar's positions, but the others existed in dimensions her eyes couldn't process. It was like trying to fight a shadow that could become solid at will. The first attack came from behind, or rather, from 7 different angles simultaneously as Vextar's quantum states converged on Maya's position. Each attack was precisely calculated to be unavoidable, covering every possible escape route. Maya closed her eyes. The crowd gasped as she seemed to simply vanish between the converging attacks, somehow finding a gap that the quantum calculations insisted shouldn't exist. But Maya wasn't relying on calculations or sensor data. She was using something far more primitive and far more reliable. She was listening to her instincts. Humans had evolved on a world where the deadliest predators were often invisible, microscopic diseases, silent stalkers, threats that couldn't be seen until it was too late. They had developed intuition as a survival mechanism, the ability to sense danger and opportunity through patterns too subtle for conscious analysis. Maya opened her eyes and struck at empty air. Her fist connected with something solid, Vextar's true position, the single quantum state that was actually substantial enough to be damaged. The Andromedan champion staggered, her quantum shifting disrupted by pain and surprise. For the first time in her career, she was locked into a single-dimensional phase, visible and vulnerable. Impossible, Dr. Silin whispered from the observation deck. Our sensors show no way she could have detected the primary quantum signature. But Maya was already moving again, pressing her advantage while Vextar struggled to re-establish her quantum coherence. The human girl fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, not with superior strength or speed, but with an almost supernatural ability to be where her opponent wasn't expecting her to be. When Vextar finally managed to resume her quantum shifting, Maya adapted again. She began fighting multiple opponents simultaneously, striking at quantum shadows while defending against attacks from dimensions she couldn't see. It was impossible, illogical, and absolutely terrifying to watch. The fight ended when Maya somehow managed to grab Vextar during a quantum transition, holding on to the Andromedan champion across multiple dimensional phases simultaneously, and throwing her into the arena wall with enough force to shatter the quantum containment field. The arena fell silent except for the sound of sparking electronics and Vextar's unconscious breathing. In the VIP section, Ambassador Krilth of the Galactic Council stood slowly, his ceremonial robes rustling in the absolute quiet. When he spoke, His voice carried to every corner of the arena. "We have made a grave error in our assessment of humanity," he announced. "We assumed that intelligence required the abandonment of survival instincts. We believed that civilization meant the elimination of adaptive capability." He paused, looking directly at Maya. "We were wrong." Dr. Sailen was frantically reviewing sensor data, her voice growing more incredulous with each reading. "The energy signatures don't match any known physics. She's somehow interfacing with quantum states without technological assistance. The neural activity patterns are unlike anything in our databases." "Because you've been studying species that evolved in safety," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly in the silent arena. "You've been cataloging the products of peaceful evolution, cooperation, and mutual aid." She gestured toward the unconscious Andromedan. "We evolved in chaos. We adapted to impossibility. We learned to succeed when success was impossible." Ambassador Krilth descended from the VIP section to arena level, flanked by guards who looked nervously uncertain about whether they were protecting him from Maya or protecting Maya from him. "What are you asking of us?" he said. Maya looked around the arena, at the thousands of alien faces staring at her with expressions ranging from awe to terror. She thought about her homeworld, with its endless struggles and its people who had dreamed of joining a galactic community that would accept them as equals. "I'm asking you to decide," she said finally. "Either we're citizens of this galaxy, with all the rights and responsibilities that implies, or we're threats to be contained. But you can't have it both ways. You can't dismiss us as primitives when it's convenient, and fear us as monsters when we prove you wrong." The ambassador was quiet for a long moment, considering implications that stretched far beyond a single space station's arena district. "There will be more fights," he said eventually. "Other species will want to test their champions against human capabilities. Military forces will want to assess whether humans represent a strategic advantage or a strategic threat." Maya nodded. "I know. Are you prepared for that?" Maya smiled, and for the first time since arriving on Kepler Station, it was genuinely happy expression. "I'm human. We're always prepared for the impossible." But neither she nor the ambassador could have predicted what was already being planned in the darker corners of galactic civilization, or how far some species would go to ensure that humanity never became more than a curiosity confined to arena combat. The assassination attempt came 3 days after Maya's victory over Vextar. Professional killers from the Void Syndicate materialized in Maya's quarters using military-grade stealth technology, expecting to find a sleeping target. Instead, they found themselves facing a human who had been awake for 36 hours straight, analyzing traffic patterns and security protocols because her survival instincts had been screaming warning since her last fight. The 3 assassins were dead within 90 seconds. Maya hadn't even needed to leave her sleeping alcove. The incident changed everything. What had begun as arena entertainment and evolved into scientific study now became a matter of galactic security. Emergency sessions were called. Military fleets began repositioning. And in the deepest black sites of military research, scientists began working around the clock to develop countermeasures for human capabilities. Commander Zikth found Maya in the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars with an expression he couldn't interpret. "They're planning something," he said without preamble. "My intelligence sources indicate at least 6 different military organizations are coordinating some kind of response to what they're calling the human problem." Maya didn't turn from the viewport. "I know. The question is whether they're planning to recruit us or eliminate us. What would you prefer?" That made her laugh, though the sound held no humor. "I prefer to go home. But that's not an option anymore, is it? Too many people have seen what humans can do. Too many governments are asking too many questions." Zikth activated his personal communicator, displaying a message that had arrived through encrypted channels. "The arena masters have received a special request. Something unprecedented." Maya finally turned to look at the message. Her expression darkened as she read. "A hive mind combat unit? They want me to fight a collective consciousness? Not just any collective consciousness. The Kepler Prime Defensive Network. 12 individual warriors sharing a single tactical intelligence, coordinated at the quantum level, with access to the combined combat experience of their entire civilization." Zikth's mandibles clicked nervously. "They're offering 50 million credits for the match." It's the largest prize in arena history. Because they expect me to lose. Because they expect you to die. Hive mind combat units don't take prisoners. They don't show mercy. They fight until their opponents are completely eliminated as threats. He paused. It's being presented as humanity's final examination, when Inhumans will be considered for provisional citizenship in galactic civilization, lose and the Galactic Council will vote to quarantine Earth indefinitely. Maya stared out at the stars again. Thinking about her home world and the billions of humans who had no idea their future was being decided in an arena, on a remote space station, she thought about her father, who had died fighting raiders to protect refugees. She thought about her brother, lost in an industrial accident that could have been prevented if humans had access to better technology. When? She asked. Tomorrow. The hive mind unit is already en route. Then I'd better get some sleep. The next morning, the arena had been transformed. The standard combat space had been expanded to accommodate 12 opponents simultaneously. Weapon dispensers had been installed around the perimeter. The hive mind combat doctrine included the use of energy weapons and combat tools. Medical teams from 6 different species stood ready, though most observers doubted they would be needed for anything except cleanup. Maya stood in the preparation chamber, reviewing intelligence reports about hive mind tactics. The data was sobering. Collective consciousness combat units had never lost an engagement. They fought with perfect coordination, shared sensory input, and the accumulated tactical knowledge of entire civilizations. You don't have to do this, Dr. Silent said from the doorway. She had remained on Kepler Station to observe the outcome of her species' humbling defeat. You could surrender. Accept exile to your home system. Your people would still be alive. But they wouldn't be free, Maya replied, checking the fit of her combat harness one final time. And neither would their children or their children's children. Someone has to take this chance. You're 17 years old, Dr. Silent said softly. The weight of your entire species' future shouldn't rest on your shoulders. Maya's smile was sad but determined. Doctor, every human carries the weight of their entire species' future. That's what it means to be from a death world. Every generation survives so the next one can have a chance at something better. The arena was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every major galactic power were in attendance, along with military observers, xenobiologists, and media representatives from hundreds of worlds. The betting pools had been shut down. This was too important for gambling. The hive mind combat unit materialized in the arena with mechanical precision. 12 identical warriors, each one a perfect biological fusion of strength, speed, and tactical capability. Their movements were synchronized to the microsecond, their shared consciousness eliminating any possibility of miscommunication or confusion. They moved as one entity wearing 12 bodies, and Maya realized immediately that everything she had learned about fighting multiple opponents was useless here. This wasn't 12 individuals, this was a single, impossibly coordinated enemy that happened to occupy 12 positions simultaneously. Human Maya Chen, the hive mind spoke with 12 voices in perfect unison. You represent a threat to galactic stability. You will be eliminated for the greater good. Maya settled into her fighting stance, but this time it was different. Gone was the relaxed confidence she had displayed in previous matches. This time she looked like what she was, a young woman facing impossible odds with nothing but determination, and the accumulated survival instincts of a species that had clawed its way up from a world that had tried to kill it for millions of years. Then, come and eliminate me, she said. The hive mind attacked with devastating efficiency. 12 weapons fired simultaneously from 12 perfectly calculated angles. 12 bodies moved in coordination that made a ballet look clumsy. 12 minds sharing a single, tactical intelligence focused their entire existence on the destruction of one human girl. Maya shouldn't have survived the first 3 seconds. But humans had evolved something that even the galaxy's most advanced civilizations didn't truly understand. Not just the ability to fight impossible odds, but the capacity to become more than the sum of their parts when pushed to their absolute limits. Maya moved like water, like fire, like something fundamental and unstoppable. She didn't fight the hive mind. She flowed around it, through it, between spaces that shouldn't have existed. She struck at targets that were somehow exactly where they needed to be for maximum effect, even though tactical analysis insisted she couldn't possibly know where they would be. The fight became a demonstration of something that galactic science had never encountered. The human capacity for transcendent adaptation. Maya wasn't just using her training or her instincts anymore. She was accessing something deeper. The collective evolutionary experience of a species that had survived every catastrophe their world could produce. She began to dismantle the hive mind systematically, using their perfect coordination against them. When one unit moved to block her attack, she was already striking at the position the next unit would need to occupy to maintain formation. When they adapted their tactics, she adapted faster. The arena fell, silent except for the sounds of combat, and the increasingly desperate tactical chatter of the hive mind as their shared consciousness struggled to develop countermeasures for something that operated outside their understanding of possible. Maya fought for 18 minutes, an eternity in high-level combat. When it ended, she stood alone among 12 unconscious opponents, barely breathing hard, while the greatest tactical minds in the galaxy tried to process what they had just witnessed. Ambassador Krilth stood in the arena's center, his ceremonial robes rustling in the absolute silence. When he spoke, his words would be broadcast to every inhabited system in the galaxy. "By the authority vested in me by the Galactic Council," he announced, "I hereby recognize humanity as a sapient species worthy of full citizenship in galactic civilization." The cheering began slowly, then built to a crescendo that could be heard throughout Kepler Station. But Maya was no longer listening to the crowd. She was thinking about home, about her people, about the future they had just earned, and she was wondering what challenges would come next. Because there would be challenges, humans always face challenges. That was what it meant to be human, it was what made them strong. 6 months after the hive mind engagement, Maya stood on the observation deck of the Earth Embassy Station, watching as the first official diplomatic vessel from the Galactic Council approached Earth's orbital space. The sleek ship was a far cry from the refugee transports that had carried the first human emigrants to the stars. Her reflection in the viewport showed someone who had aged more than 6 months in half a year. The weight of representing an entire species had left its mark, but her eyes held satisfaction rather than weariness. The impossible had become inevitable, just as humans had always made it. "The Council's offer is unprecedented," Ambassador Krilth said, reviewing the diplomatic documents one final time. "Full membership, with immediate access to galactic trade networks, technology exchanges, and scientific cooperation. 3 seats on the Security Council, 2 on the Economic Development Board, and representation in the Cultural Exchange Program." Maya nodded, though her attention was focused on the approaching ship. Somewhere aboard that vessel were aliens who 6 months ago had considered humanity a potential threat to galactic civilization. Now they were coming to establish formal diplomatic relations with a species they had learned to respect. "There are conditions, of course," Krilth continued. "Human military forces will be subject to galactic oversight for the first decade. No human settlements may be established within 5 parsecs of existing alien colonies without mutual agreement, and any human who demonstrates combat capabilities beyond established parameters must register with the Galactic Defense Force." "They're still afraid of us," Maya observed. "They're cautious," Krilth corrected. "There's a difference. Fear leads to oppression or elimination. Caution leads to mutual respect and careful cooperation." He paused. "Your species has earned both their respect and their caution." Maya turned from the viewport to find Dr. Silent approaching, carrying a datapad filled with research findings. The Andromedan scientist had spent the past 6 months studying human physiology, psychology, and evolutionary development. Her findings had revolutionized galactic understanding of intelligence and adaptation. "The final reports are complete," Dr. Silent announced. "We've identified what makes humans unique among galactic species." She activated a holographic display showing evolutionary timelines and comparative analysis. Most intelligent species evolved on worlds with stable climates and predictable environments. They developed intelligence as a tool for cooperation and mutual benefit. The display shifted to show Earth's chaotic history: ice ages, asteroid impacts, mass extinctions, volcanic eruptions, and constant environmental upheaval. Humans evolved intelligence as a survival mechanism. Every major evolutionary leap was triggered by catastrophe. Your species learned to adapt not just to their environment, but to constant change itself. Dr. Silent's expression was one of scientific wonder. "You didn't just develop intelligence, you developed the capacity to transcend your own limitations when survival required it." Is that why they're still nervous about us? Maya asked. That's why they're offering full membership immediately instead of the usual century-long probationary period, Krilth replied. They've realized that trying to contain or control humanity would eventually lead to exactly the kind of catastrophic conflict that humans evolved to win. Soft chime indicated an incoming message from Earth. Maya activated the communication console to find her mother's face, appearing in holographic projection. The older woman's eyes were bright with tears of joy and pride. Maya, sweetheart, are you watching the news feeds? Maya glanced at the wall displays, which were showing celebrations erupting across Earth as word of the diplomatic success reached every human settlement. People were dancing in the streets of New Geneva, holding impromptu parades in the orbital colonies, and setting off fireworks that could be seen from space. They're calling you the woman who opened the galaxy to humanity, her mother continued. Universities are offering to name entire departments after you. The president wants to give you a medal. And your father, her voice broke slightly. Your father would have been so proud. Maya felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I didn't do anything special, Mom. I just did what any human would do when cornered. That's exactly what made it special, dear. You showed them who we really are. After the communication ended, Maya found herself alone on the observation deck, watching as the diplomatic vessel completed its approach to Earth. Soon, alien ambassadors would walk on humanity's homeworld for the first time in an official capacity. Human scientists would gain access to technologies that could solve their remaining environmental challenges. Human artists would share their creations with civilizations spanning the galaxy. Commander Zikth approached quietly, his exoskeleton reflecting the light from Earth's surface. Any regrets? He asked. Maya considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, she had been a refugee looking for simple work. Now she was the most famous human in galactic history. Her arena fights required viewing in xenobiology courses across hundreds of worlds. I regret that it took violence to earn respect, she said finally. I regret that humans had to prove they were dangerous before anyone would consider that they might be valuable. She paused. But I don't regret the outcome. The galaxy is different now because of what you did, Zikth observed. Other species are beginning to question their assumptions about intelligence and civilization. The Galactic Council is revising its policies about Deathworld species. 3 previously ignored worlds have been granted full evaluations for potential membership. Maya smiled at that. Perhaps her fights had accomplished more than just opening doors for humanity. Perhaps they had opened minds to the possibility that strength and intelligence could take forms the galaxy had never imagined. What will you do now? Zikth asked. The Galactic Defense Force has offered you a commission as a strategic advisor. Several universities want you to head their new Department of Survival Studies. The Arena Masters are offering contracts that would make you wealthy beyond imagination. Maya looked out at Earth, thinking about the billions of humans who were just beginning to dream about their place among the stars. I think I'll go home for a while. Spend time with my mother. Visit my father's grave and tell him we made it. She paused. And then maybe I'll become a teacher. A teacher? There are going to be millions of young humans heading out into the galaxy over the next few decades. They'll need to know how to represent our species with dignity, how to show strength without threatening others, how to adapt to situations they never imagined. Maya's smile was warm and genuine. They'll need to know what it means to be human in a galaxy full of aliens who are still learning what that means. As if summoned by her words, the communication console chimed with an incoming message from the transport New Horizons. Currently 3 days out from Earth with the largest group of human emigrants ever assembled. Maya Chen, came a young voice from the speaker. This is Sarah Martinez aboard the New Horizons. We heard about what you did. We wanted to thank you for making it possible for us to explore the galaxy as citizens instead of refugees. More voices joined in, dozens of young humans expressing their gratitude and excitement about the future. Maya listened to their hopes and dreams, their plans for careers among the stars, their determination to prove worthy of the opportunities she had won for them. Don't thank me, Maya said into the communication pickup. Thank your parents who were brave enough to reach for something better. Thank your grandparents who survived Earth's worst disasters. Thank every human who ever faced impossible odds and found a way to win. She paused, looking out at the diplomatic vessel now settling into Earth orbit. And remember that being human doesn't mean being violent. It means being adaptable. It means finding ways to succeed when success seems impossible. It means never giving up, no matter how bad things look. The voices from the New Horizons erupted in cheers and promises to make humanity proud. When the communication ended, Maya remained at the viewport, watching as the first formal meeting between human and galactic diplomats began on the surface of her homeworld. She had been called fragile when she first arrived on Kepler Station. The galaxy had learned otherwise. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned that human strength came not from brutality or aggression, but from the refusal to accept defeat as final. Maya Chen, the girl who had accidentally redefined humanity's place in galactic civilization, smiled as she watched the future begin to unfold. It would be a future full of challenges, conflicts, and impossible situations. It would be a human future, and that meant it would be extraordinary.